step into the world of Chen Hong-chuan, where Taiwan's past comes alive through vintage cars and forgotten everyday items.
It's super rare. No one else has it, but I do. Hi everyone, I'm Chen Hong-chuan. I'm a big fan of vintage things from Taiwan, and I'd love to share memories of the past with all of you.
In a quiet town in southern Taiwan, one man has found a way to stop time, preserving everyday life as it once was. At nearly 70 years old, Chen Hung-chuan is a keeper of memories. What began as a love for vintage cars grew into something much greater. A vast collection of license plates, tools, and everyday objects from long ago. Stepping into his world feels like stepping into the past. Each item whispers the stories of old Taiwan, where ordinary life becomes extraordinary and memories live on.
Ever since I was a kid, I've loved the look of vintage cars. I always thought they were very beautiful. It's just really cool to look at. Back then, when I watched American movies on TV, I'd always see those vintage cars cruising down the streets, the kind we could never find here in Taiwan. That's what first sparked my love for old cars, and eventually, it led me to start collecting all kinds of vintage items. I'm especially into things that move, like vehicles or things that run on electricity. Because to me, those things feel alive. They can break down, but if you take care of them, they can last a long time. And even if they stop working, you can fix them and make them run again. It makes me genuinely happy. This is a record player. It works as both a radio and a turntable. When I first got it, it was broken, so I fixed it myself. I actually have a few of these record players.
So this one actually works now?
Yeah, it works fine now.
Every collection has its beginning. For Chen, it wasn't the antique car he'd always wanted. It was something far more unusual, a motorized bicycle with an engine strapped to its pedals. That quirky little machine jump-started his lifelong journey as a collector.
I got this one around 1989. It was my first ever vintage motorized bicycle. When I was a kid, I remember seeing people riding these to deliver medicine. So when I found one that had survived all these years, I decided to buy it. Back then, it cost me about 50,000 Taiwan dollars. And at that time, my monthly salary was less than $20,000. I told my wife, I'm sorry, I just really want it. She said, if you like it, then buy it. I'm really lucky. She's always supported me. She always says, as long as it makes you happy, that's what matters.
For him, collecting was never about cost. It was about preservation. What may seem like ordinary, everyday objects actually hold hidden stories, many of them tied to Taiwan's earliest milestones.
This is a TTV television made by Taiwan Television Company. It's from 1962, the founding of Taiwan Television. At that time, there were no TV sets for sale in Taiwan, so TTV teamed up with Hitachi in Japan to make their own TVs. This is considered the very first television made in Taiwan. This is the very first refrigerator made in Taiwan. It belonged to a doctor who used it to store vaccines and save lives.
So it still works, right?
Yeah, it's still fully functional. The freezer section here still freezes solid. This is a first-generation karaoke machine. It plays karaoke backing tapes.
You probably can't find these anymore, right?
Yeah, only collectors still have them. Most people wouldn't keep something like this at home anymore. This is a duty station console. It's from around 1946, the first generation made in Taiwan's post-war era. And this here is a police radio. It was issued by the police department back in the early 1950s.
Only 2 left in Taiwan?
Yeah, just 2. The other one's in the National Police Agency's museum. Actually, I was the one who repaired the one in the museum. This is Taiwan's very first locally made motorcycle brand. It's called Shandong. I decided to collect this bike because my father used to own one. When I was a kid, I actually rode on it with him. It's called the Shandong 50. And it's one of the rare first-generation motorcycles made in Taiwan. That's what makes it so special. You almost never see one like this anymore. It's been decades since the first ones were made, so whenever I find one that's still around, I do everything I can to preserve it. And if someone's willing to sell it, I'll buy it right away.
Chen's collection is more than a record of Taiwan's firsts. It preserves ordinary memories of everyday life over the last century.
This is a commercial tricycle from about 60 or 70 years ago. It used to carry passengers back in the day. What makes this one really special is that it still has 4 of the original bicycle license plates on the back. You just can't find one this complete anymore. And it even still has the old tricycle bell. Shake the rattle drum, sell the goods. And this right here is a rattle drum. Whenever people heard this sound, they knew the peddler was coming. Back then, people sold goods from carts that traveled from place to place. In the countryside, this was basically a mobile grocery shop. Malt sugar vendors used this sound. They'd know it meant the Candyman was here. This horn sound, babu, was used by the ice cream sellers. And this one, the conch shell. As soon as people heard that sound, they knew the pork vendor was here. This sound here was from the sweet potato seller. Back then, there were no loudspeakers, so if you had to shout all day, you'd lose your voice fast. That's why each type of vendor had their own unique sound. What I love most is being able to tell stories with these vintage items, where they came from, how people lived, and what life was like back then. It helps people today understand what Taiwan used to be like.
Throughout this journey, there were moments when objects seemed to find their way to him. As Mr. Chen likes to say, the item chooses its owner.
This is invented by a Taiwanese. It is called the Little Pony Elastic Bike. It came out sometime in the late 1970s. It was even featured on a TV show back then, on TTV's 5 Lights Award program, as a giveaway item. About 20 years ago, around 2005, I happened to see someone riding one in Taichung. I asked him if he wanted to sell it, and he said no, so I just walked away. But after a while, I circled back around the park and ran into him again. So I asked him again, and this time I offered him 2,000 Taiwan dollars. He agreed to sell it to me. Sometimes I think these items choose their owners. When you really want something in your heart, it somehow just appears, like fate has brought you together.
But how do we define the value of an antique? In the marketplace, everything has a price tag. In the heart of a collector, true value comes from passion. When you love something, it's priceless. That said, in terms of market value, his MG vintage car is likely the most valuable piece in his entire collection.
The most valuable moving thing I own is my car. This one's a 1951 British-made MG convertible. It was brought to Taiwan decades ago by US military forces during their time here, and it's been here ever since. Among all the convertibles that can still get a license plate today, this is probably the oldest one. Just the repairs alone have cost me over $1 million Taiwan dollars. We once took this car on a 10-day trip around the island to celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary. I had just retired, so I thought, why not make it a special celebration? But now, I've gotten so used to driving this old car. It's slow but steady, and we made it all the way. Along the way, other drivers gave us a thumbs up, and everyone was so warm and friendly. The car never broke down until we stopped at the Matsu Temple in Lugang. I parked for a photo, and when I tried to leave, the car wouldn't start. Maybe the gods wanted us to stay a little longer, so people could take a few more pictures.
Preserving these objects also means preserving their stories. Chen often says that it's only when we display and share these objects that they truly live on. These everyday items of the past have become vessels of memory. When an old engine roars back to life, or when a vintage fridge still gathers frost, what we witness is more than nostalgia. We see time itself, Taiwan's history, living on through these objects.
What I really hope is to pass these things down to the next generation so that they can appreciate the beauty of the past. But I can only do so much alone. I'm only one person. If local governments or public organizations ever want to hold exhibitions, I'm more than happy to lend these pieces for free. As long as they're properly protected and not damaged in any way. I would love for everyone to see them and appreciate their history.